welcome to episode 5 of Our Greener Pastures. My guest today is the lovely, lovely Wura. And Wura has a very unconventional relocation path. She moved to Canada because she got a job here. And yeah, we just talk about what that experience was like, how she was able to leverage her network in pursuit of her greener pastures. She also talks about, getting acclimatized and accustomed and settled in a new country, and what that is like from a perspective of somebody that already has a good job and is just trying to, find their feet, find a new community and all of that. I hope you enjoyed the episode and thank you. Hey, Ura, how are you?
Hi, Tele. Hi, everyone. I'm doing fine, thank
She's so
you.
sweet. Can you hear her voice? Like, thank you for doing this with me, Ura. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you
And
for
yeah,
having me.
yeah. So, we can just jump right into it. So, I like to ask this question at first to kind of like create a nice conversation flow. So, it's like, at what point did you decide you were moving away from Nigeria?
Uh, so I think I traveled July 2021, and I think when I decided was like last quarter of 2020, specifically during the NSAS period. So it was around that period that I I strongly felt the need to leave. Um, Before then, I wasn't really considering, but that was the point where I started looking into it.
Yeah, a lot of us had NSAS really did a number on us, like a lot of us. I remember that too, because NSAS, I won't say NSAS was when I decided to leave, but after NSAS, I would say I kind of like just lost hope. I felt
Mhm.
really hopeless, and yeah, so that was when I was actually really looking forward to leave. And all right, so like when you decided during NSAS, what did you start to do? What were you doing to kind of like facilitate your relocation?
So the thing is, like I said, I wasn't even thinking about it because like I just felt like I was going to be here and I was doing okay. But I mean, like everyone knows how Nigeria is, but I guess I was just like managing how Nigeria was. But when NSAS happened, my mindset completely shifted, and I just in that point realized like I'm so young. I have a really good job, but I still feel like I'm struggling. So like I feel like I have to make a plan to leave for some time. So I started praying about it. I wasn't exactly sure like what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, but I think in December like I was praying, and January was when I actually like started making serious plans because um like I got the conviction by January, like, yes, I'm actually leaving. And what sorry, your question was like what exactly did I do like towards
Mm-hmm.
that plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my story is kind of weird because like I said, like I wasn't really thinking about it, but I started praying, and like God is at the center of this story because by third week in January, my mind was set and I didn't know how, but in my head I just thought like, okay, Canada is like the fastest route that I see people go through. I knew I didn't want to go back to school, which is odd because I only have a first degree. But then I was just like, I just don't know how I'm going to live, but I'm just going to start doing things within my control and then like build upon that. So by February, I started processing my West. I paid for my IELTS. I started reading. I wrote my IELTS February 13th or February 14th.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like literally was just like, let me do everything within my control. I just know I will. I strongly believe that I was going to end up in Canada. I didn't know if it was going to take a year. I just wanted to start doing things. And I mean, I was actually praying about this. And then by, I think maybe 2 weeks after I'd written my IELTS, I wasn't really saying anything to anyone around me because, like, when I pray about certain things and I am still in the moment where I am trying to figure it out, I don't tend to say anything until it has manifested and then I can start
Yeah.
talking about it. But for some weird reason, yeah, 2 weeks after my IELTS, I was just randomly talking to a colleague of mine. So I work for a global organization. And a colleague of mine here in Nigeria, she just said, "Oh, like at some point, I'm definitely going to like leave Nigeria and like go to Canada, but I'm like probably going to get married soon, and I will leave through like the marriage route. And like my company has offices in Canada." And I was like, "Oh, interesting." And for some weird reason, I just randomly said to her like that. Funny that you should say that because like I'm in a position where I'm actively trying to figure out how to leave. Like I wrote my IELTS 2 weeks ago. And then she says to me, "Oh, would you consider like applying for a job?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, like I probably maybe have gone to the like my job portal, my
Mm-hmm.
company's job portal like before. I've been with at this point I've been with this company for like 2 years." And I was like, I probably checked it out like maybe a year ago, but like I didn't hear anything. And she's like, "Oh, did you like log in with your company email? You know, you can see the email of the person that posted the job." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know this." But anyways, once I received that information, I prayed about it, and I just like the Holy Spirit just told me that like yeah, like apply. I reached out to the managers directly, and I found favor. One of the managers I reached out to replied me by the next day, and when that happened, I knew that this is how God was going to get me out. So after I spoke to the manager, like for the role I applied to in Canada, I had my first interview, then I had another interview, then I had another interview, and um, now I'm here.
Wow.
But the summary of that is that, like, yeah, I got that job, and yeah, that's how it happened. And they filed for my work permit, and I relocated.
Wow. How does it feel to be God's favorite? Wow, wow, that is so fascinating because I feel like I mean, this is part of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you on the podcast. Like, I love your story of how you relocated. Like, it
Thank
just
you.
goes to show, like you never really know. Like, just mention something to people. Like, you never
Yes.
really know, like, where you can get information from. You
Yes.
never really, as opposed
Yes.
to just, yeah. I really love
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. I think the one thing I took from that experience was like I if I say the story, I still see myself as the third person because I actually like I mean of course like I did like have faith, but like at the same time I was just like, "Oh my gosh, like is this actually happening?" Because like I told you, I had no plans on leaving. Like it wasn't like I'm a very pragmatic person, and if I really want something, I probably would have been thinking about it for a
Mhm.
long time. But I was that kind of Nigerian who was like, "Who's going to stay to fix Nigeria?" Doesn't mean that I don't want to help to fix, right? But like,
Yeah.
my mind was just on like, if everybody is leaving, who will stay? Like, I was just so used to this place that I just didn't really feel like leaving. I didn't have any conviction, and like I told you, like NSAS happened. I started praying, and the way if I start going into like the very specifics of like just what God did and like just how He showed me things, we probably wouldn't need this podcast. But one thing I got from it was such a beautiful experience. Like I did not know how I was going to leave, but I knew I was going to leave, and the first thing I did was to do things within my control. Like I was just like, okay, let me just write this IELTS, right? Let me try to process my West and let's see how many points I have. And then let's see how we can go forward from there. And I mean, it turned out that like he wanted me to live through the job route, which
The job route,
I
yeah.
wasn't even thinking. And I found favor and I'm super grateful for that. And I'm just grateful that like, even if I didn't really have a clue, the prayer I prayed in December, I told God that like He should show me the way to go clearly, and He showed me clearly. Like, but He showed me like I got my job offer 2 weeks, like 2 weeks before I got my job offer verbally. I had no clue that I was going to be living through like getting a job. Like that's how crazy it is. Like my interview happened. Sorry, I got my job offer 3 weeks after like I had that conversation with the person at work. Because once I spoke to her, the next day I started looking at applying for jobs, and then I had an interview the day after, and then had another one, like two other ones, like a week after, and then a week after that, I followed up with the hiring manager, and he said verbally like we will like sponsor you and hire you. And I think I'm super grateful because like yeah, like you said, like you just never know. So I'm still in awe, like even as I talk about it. Yeah.
I mean, all with you, my dear. I mean, I mean, only if you guys understand like what leave Wura. Wura is being modest. Wura is she's a, you know, you say she's a big girl. She's a big girl.
I'm
She's a
screaming.
big babe. Like, she's a very she's an IT professional. Like, I don't want to go into what she does, but like she knows her stuff. So I can see
Thank
why. I
you.
mean, I feel like they're lucky to have you. If you ask me, I
Thank
feel like
you.
they are very lucky to have you. I love that. I really love that, and thank you for sharing that. So now I just want to talk more about like now you've gotten the job offer, now you know you're leaving Nigeria, you're going to Canada. Like, how was it breaking the news to like your friends, your family? Like, were there any, like, did people feel like me, for example, when I was relocating, my parents were really sad. They did as if I was doing something to them. Like, it was a whole, it was a whole thing. So I'm just wondering, like, well, how was that? How was that for you, breaking the news to like your friends
Yeah.
and family? Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, that was very interesting. I mean, for me, with my parents, I have two elder sisters who had left before me. In fact, like, I'm probably sure they were happy, like, when I had told them. So it wasn't that big of a deal. My mom specifically, so, I said I wasn't really sharing this information with anyone.
Hmm.
But God is so beautiful because, like, I think a week after I had written my IELTS and I was trying to process something from my West, I was I was upstairs like photocopying something for my West. And then my mom just sees me and then she's just saying things like, I had a dream about you. And I was just like, oh, she has come again, no. And then she's like, oh, in the dream, like she was saying it like she's come from a place of fear. Like in the dream, you suddenly like just got elevated, like you were in a different place. It was in a very beautiful place, it was completely different. And it was so sudden. And then some of your friends were very envious of this. And then she's like, I don't know what that means, but just be careful though. And I was just like, I was crying on the inside. And I said to her, I know exactly what you mean. And of course, like that period, I couldn't believe everything that was happening. And I just told her that like what you just said, and by the way, this is before I applied for the job. I didn't know
Hmm.
how I was going to leave. But I told her that like I was a bit nervous, but like you just confirmed God's word. And I told her, oh, by the way, I'm currently, it was the first person I told her, I'm currently like trying to figure out how to leave. And it didn't really make sense to her. And then like 3 weeks after I told her that statement was when I verbally got my job offer. I'll never forget. It was like, I think maybe March, mid-March. And then it was on a Wednesday. I tell her like, oh, I told you that I'm leaving. I just got a job offer in Canada. And she started dancing. She could not believe like that this
That's,
thing that I
yeah.
said was going to happen. I just didn't know how actually happened. So
Hmm.
of course she was excited. My dad was excited. Like everyone was excited. And then the next thing I had to do was tell my friends. I told two of my close friends. Maybe like a week or two after I had verbally gotten the offer or officially gotten the offer. I can't remember. And then I left in July. So maybe by like June, I started telling people, like I sat down a couple of my friends and I just told them that, oh, you guys, I'm leaving. And then I had a long list of people that I wanted to tell before I leave, maybe like 10, 15 people. So I did that as well a few weeks before I left. But I think the one thing that I took from that experience was, of course, everyone was happy. A couple of people were sad, like, wow, so you're actually leaving us. But people were more focused on, I guess, the testimony part of my story, especially my friends who I had shared that with. So that's how the experience was for me.
Wow, that's really nice. Like, I mean, it just goes to show like you have a really, really great support system around you. Like, and yeah, I mean, I love that for you.
Thank
I
you.
love that for you. That's, I mean, even I love that your mom was even able to confirm all the things like God had told you and all of that. Because, I mean, for me, it's like even sometimes when you know what to do, there's always fear, there's
Yeah,
always, so just having that just gives you a bit more confidence to like, yeah, I'm doing the right
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. And I would like to add to anyone that like see like that saying, I'm just a girl. Like even like I'm just like a regular I mean, I'm a Christian, and I just want to say that, like, I was in doubt in that period. Like, imagine, even after what my mom had said, there were still sometimes, even after they had given me my offer letter, I'll never forget when they were processing my work permits. Like, the devil would still make me feel like they won't approve that thing. And even if you told everybody, you're not going to leave. Like, I was
Yeah.
still, there were days where I was still like nervous. I would cry, like, oh my gosh. And then there was COVID as well. I was just panicking for like the littlest things. So, like, I'm just adding to it that, like, I was in doubt sometimes, but God is so beautiful that I just found that even when I was in doubt, like, the next day, like, He's back to like helping my faith. So it wasn't like even if I got the conviction, I was 100% like believing that yes, this is going to happen. So yeah, I just wanted to add that as well.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, now let's talk about travel day. What was travel day like back in, like
Travel
were you
day.
nervous? Like what was your travel day experience?
So for me, um, let me see. I think before the trip, I heard this. I already started watching. So I first of all moved to Vancouver, and I started watching videos about just like what the city is like, and just like the scenery and everything. That was exciting. The funny thing is that, like, I didn't really know what to expect, and there was nothing really holding me back here. Um, and like it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss. I mean, I love my parents, but like I wasn't like crying like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss these people. Like, if I'm being very honest, I wasn't that dramatic. My friends did have like a surprise going away party, which was nice. I'm super grateful for that. So shout out to everyone that was involved in that process. So that was a bit emotional because like they all came together the day before, and then I was still just in awe. And you wouldn't believe that, like, months after I got there, I still just felt like a bit out of place. Like, it just felt like I was still on vacation.
Yeah, I know
Um,
that feeling.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, the trip was nice. I guess because of COVID, it was a bit weird because, like, you had to quarantine.
Mhm.
But aside from that, like, I don't think I was nervous. I was just more of like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe this is happening because everything just happened so fast, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I mean, my next question would be like some initial challenges, but your story is so unique. Like, because most people, the initial challenges they have is like getting a job, blah blah blah, figuring out
Yeah,
how to do that. But you came in with the job, so for
yeah.
somebody that already has a job, like, what were some initial challenges like you faced when you arrived in Canada?
So, I mean, the obvious big one would be like just finding a place.
Yeah.
So, my company hired me to work from Vancouver, and I didn't know anyone in Vancouver. I knew one or two people in Victoria, which is not too far from Vancouver. But when I first got there, I stayed with a friend in Victoria for like a month, and I knew I had to go back to Vancouver to find my own place. So it was a bit challenging because that was my first time trying to rent a place to stay. I didn't know anyone in Vancouver, so I didn't have enough information. I would say, like, let me tell you, like, just a funny story. So, because I was thinking I had to go to the office physically, I just thought to myself, and my office was in downtown, I just thought to myself, oh, okay, if I want to save money on like transport, let me just like rent the cheapest place in downtown so that my office is like really close to work. So my house is really close to work, and I don't have to worry too much about like getting to
Yeah.
the office. Again, I didn't know anything, right? It's like I've never lived out of Nigeria, so like I'm not too familiar with like the transit system or things like that. And I went for the cheapest apartment in downtown, which was probably one of my biggest regrets because it was very old. And before this, I was living with my parents. I never actually had to make a decision about living alone. But one thing that I learned from that experience was I can't stand like extremely old apartments. Like, so I signed a 1 year contract, and I actually broke my lease like a month and a half after because it was a terrible experience. Like, I thought, okay, if I furnish it up and like I paint some places myself, like I'll feel comfortable. But a month after, I realized like, okay, I wasn't just comfortable just because like it wasn't like everything was like rusty. Like I was just creeped out by a couple of things. There were some places I don't even want to go into it. And by this time, I had met Nigerians in Vancouver. Like, it's been a month and a half, so I started meeting people. And then when I meet people, I now find out that like there are other options than staying like in downtown. And I found out that like most people don't actually stay in downtown when they first come, like because again it's super expensive and the train runs every 5 minutes if you stay. So I think the one thing I learned was that like if you stay like Vancouver, as long as you're close to the train line, right, you can get to downtown in 30 minutes, right? It's like, so you don't have to stay in downtown. So a month and a half, I met more Nigerians and like I expressed my discomfort to them. And I found somewhere else, there's somewhere else called Surrey. And I found a brand new apartment, cheaper than what I was paying for where I hated. And of course, like I moved, I was so happy, and it was very close to the train station. And I just used to take the train, and it was like the best thing ever. So I think that's the one thing. If my advice would be like, I think I kind of rushed into it because I didn't know anyone. So like, if there's like temp housing, or if there's someone that can house you for like a month or two, while you talk to other people to find out more about like where you think would be best to stay, I think you should do that. And for me, I love the fact that there's like a train system in these major cities. So if I'm ever moving, I wasn't driving there, so I was trying to find like a place close to a train station. And if I need to go to downtown for work or anything, it wouldn't be a hassle. So that was my only challenge, I think.
Yeah. I love that Wura said that, because when my sister also came to Canada, she was in Vancouver, and Wura really helped her settle. They helped her figure out where to stay and helped her settle in. So yeah, so I mean, relocation is never easy, but your story is giving God is within. That's what I'll say. Your story is giving. Like, it wasn't. I mean, I love that the only stress you actually went through was finding a place to stay, because I mean it's not always the same like that with everybody. But I really love your story. Like I
Thank
really
you.
do. It's so it just goes to show, like when you walk with God, like now I feel like we're preaching. Like when you work with God, like things are just like, and you're the second person I'm speaking to on this podcast that like speaks about how he was very instrumental in like their relocation journey. And it just shows how like, bro, you don't have to stress once you have God. Like things will really work out for you. And I really love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank
so
you.
now, I mean, you did not really have stress now, so we're just going to move along without.
Yeah.
So now we're just going to talk about like, did you think like with the kind of family and friends you have, like it feels like you have a lot of people still back in Nigeria. Did you think relocation affected those relationships? Like, were you able to maintain
Um,
them and things like that?
that's a very good question. I mean, so I would say like with friends, I mean we family, like half of my family members were not even here in the very first place. And like I'm not the closest to my parents. I mean, weird thing is I think I got a bit closer to them after I left because like I'm helping them out with a couple of things now. But with my friends, I mean I kind of expected that, like of course, like not people that are super close to you, but just people that like you see here and there just because you guys are in the same place. I kind of expected that it wouldn't just be the same. So I would say, yeah, there are a few people like that I definitely felt like there's a close friend of mine who we're no longer friends. Um, I mean, just because like distance and everything, and like you just like kind of grow apart. So, well, it was like hard in some cases. Like now that I think about it, but um, I know initially when I had first moved, I think that first year, Vancouver is 9 hours, 9 to 8 hours ahead, sorry, behind Nigeria. So it was hard, like having to like find time to talk to someone, especially during the week, right? Because when they're free, you're probably working, or when you're free, they're probably sleeping, type
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, it was kind of hard maintaining those friendships, but the ones like the people that were like super close to me, I guess I still sort of talk to, and a few people have also moved as well. Yeah, and most of the, almost every other person, I guess we just kind of grew apart. And it wasn't just necessarily because I moved. I think people got married, life just got in the way. So one friend, which that won't pain me. But we don't talk as much because we're close before, but I moved and we kind of like grew apart. Yeah. So I guess that's the only thing I would say was like a bit weird.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, relocation does that. Relocation does that. I mean, I've had people lose their whole relationships like because of relocation. Like it's really something. All right. So now I just want to ask, so after you moved and then I mean you had a job already, were there any moments of doubts like that you had, like even like I mean working for a company in Canada, did you have any like moments of doubts, like feeling like, oh, maybe you're not good enough or whatever? Did you have any of that?
Of course, like so this team I'm with right now, I started working with them even while I was in Nigeria. So while they were processing my visa. So from June, I got officially hired. I got my letter like May. I started in June. I traveled in July. So June, July, because I'm a software engineer and I was switching from like anyone that knows software engineering, I was switching from like purely back end to purely front end. And it's like a whole switch. I mean, before I applied for this job, I intentionally went for front end. I was learning things on my own. But when I joined the team, I did feel a bit weird because everyone I used to work with before, no, sorry, half of my team members before were Nigerians. Like, even if it's the same company, it's a very big company, but I was working with a lot of Nigerians in Nigeria. So I just felt like, okay, that that may have been a better experience than me now working with a team that is purely like non-Nigerians. But like looking back now, I prefer my team now to my team then. But when I first joined, for the first 2 3 months, I felt out of place. I used to feel like I was a fraud. I mean, at the back of my head, I knew I wasn't like, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is taking me so long to figure out. But I think it's just normal, right? It's like it's just a normal thing that people go through at the beginning. So I definitely felt that like at different points in time. Um, but I think by like four 4 months into the job, um, I had already found my bearing, kind of, and like I have a work bestie now who I love, which is crazy because like I just thought like working with Nigerians would be just more comfortable and better for me. Not to say I like not working Nigerians, but now there are no Nigerians on my team. In fact, only like 3 black people out of a team of 60 or something. But like my team members are pretty cool. I Most of them are in America, so I barely have to see them in person, but it just works. And I love my work bestie. So shout out to Nora.
Yeah, I love that you said that. So it just, like what I would take from that is just being open-minded and putting your best foot forward, regardless. Like, yeah, don't allow fear and doubts take over. Yeah, so let's now it's time for you to brag a little bit. Like I like to, I like, I like to ask this question just because I just always want, like, I'm just trying to make you understand why I'm asking you these questions, because I want people to know like there's a bigger picture. Like even when you first move, if things look like they're not as rosy, as there's always a bigger picture. So I just want you to talk about like some of your achievements so far, like since you moved to
Mhm.
Canada, like so you don't have to say what you're not comfortable with, but
Yeah,
just some things like you feel like relocation has really helped you
yeah,
achieve. Yeah.
yeah. I'm shy. I'm just joking. The funny thing is, like, if I like the things I would share, they probably would sound like just very random, right? But
Mm.
I think for me, with the relocation, like the few things that I'm grateful for, obviously, like the first thing is my job. The funny thing is, like, life is so funny. Like, if I tell you now that like the job is even very overwhelming, sometimes they're even annoying me. At the same time, I do love the job, but like I'm thankful for that. But aside from that, I think I wasn't really thinking outside of the box until I got this job. Like I slightly understand more about the job market like since I moved. So one thing I'm grateful for, like as a software engineer, is that like I think I was thinking my mind was limited, right? In terms of just how I was thinking of just in terms of like what you can be earning and like what opportunities are out there. But since I moved, I've just like learned more about like how the market operates. So I'm grateful for that, right? That I work for like a really large org. I think another thing that I was thankful for was um after the horrible experience I had in my first like apartment that I rented, like every other place I have stayed in, I am super thankful for that. Like, so I'm thankful that I just have a place that I like. So by the way, now I've moved to Toronto. For anyone who cares, I was in Vancouver before, but, like I moved to Toronto like beginning of last year. And the one thing I'm thankful for is I've the two places I lived in so far, I've actually just loved like just the level of comfort that I get from where I live. I don't know. I feel like I don't know if I'm answering your question in terms of achievements, but there are a few things that like growth for me as a person. Like I've learned a few things that I never knew that I actually like. I've just discovered a lot of things about myself. So because now I live by myself, I've just learned so much about myself. Like I love cooking, which I didn't. I mean, it kind of unlocked beginning of pandemic, but like since I moved, like the things I have just been cooking and the consistency has even shocked even me. Like if you ask my friends, they'll tell you like where is always cooking. So I like that. I learned to swim, which I love. Like I cycled more. I learned to do my own makeup, and that's like the latest achievement in my own. I just things that I have been doing for myself.
Yeah.
I am I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it actually does, because I love the angle you answered that question from, because achievements don't necessarily have to be material things. And I love that personal growth is something that you think, yeah, because to be honest, even me myself, like relocation really made me understand myself better as well. Like when
Yeah,
things happen, and then like I always tell my husband that I think I did self therapy for myself. Like
yeah,
this, yeah. Because
yeah,
I sit down and I ask myself like tough questions. Why does this make you feel this way? Why, like,
yeah. I can completely resonate with what you just said. Like the that self therapy that you said, I've just gone through so many things. Just having to deal with like managing relationships with people around you. Like I have had to process so many things. I've had to unlearn a couple of things. I never used to read. Last year, for the first time, I read like 16 books. Again, I was never a reader all my life. Like, so, like, just it's different things that I have learned. And I think some level of growth in my book is like things that I'm proud of. Aside from that, I would like to add that, like, since I moved, I haven't really felt like I had the thing I've been struggling with is like finding a place to call home. Like right now, you're calling me from Lagos. Like I'm sure people are wondering, like she moved back. Like, even my parents are like, "Why did you come here?" So like, I I left and I was happy to leave, but at the same time, it wasn't something that like I was walking towards doing for like years, right? Like it wasn't like I was trying to run away from Nigeria. And when I was in Vancouver, I felt a bit out of place. I felt like I was on holiday and I was going to go back somewhere, but I just did not know where, because I not like I was excited about going back to Nigeria, but I think I identified that was because I didn't really have a community there. So because of that, I moved to Toronto. I know more people in Toronto, and even after I have moved to Toronto, I still was struggling a bit. I wasn't completely opening up myself for some weird reason. I was still hanging on to Nigeria, but I'm pleased to tell anyone listening that I cannot wait to get back to Toronto. So yeah, like I feel like now, like I came to Lagos for like a little while, and I'm going back like in like 2 weeks, and I know now that like I felt out of place before, but I think just coming here, it was like a fish out of the water type of experience. And I mean, I'm grateful for my time here, but like I know now that like I'm ready to like just embrace somewhere that I can call home. That's the one thing I think I've struggled with. Like for some weird reason, I just always felt, I don't know how to put it. Maybe because I'm there by myself, I just felt like a bit out of place. And now I came back here and I still just feel like, okay, let me just, I don't know if I'm saying something in any sense, but like that's the one
yeah.
thing I've struggled with. Like I felt a bit out of place, but I'm grateful that I took some time away. And now I'm looking forward to going back and just like fully embracing it, because I don't think I have done that. So I guess it adds up to the whole like self-therapy thing that you
Yeah.
said.
I mean, I love that you said that, because I fully resonate with that, because I went to Nigeria in December as well, and before I went to Nigeria, I always felt, I won't say I felt out of place, but I just did not feel settled in Canada just yet. Like I kept on feeling, gosh, I miss home. I want to go back home. And it wasn't like I missed anything. It was just, I felt like I just missed my life in Nigeria. You know how I know where everything is. You
Yeah,
like I know what places are. Now it's just like I'm trying to learn new things. And I'll
yeah.
tell you for a fact, once I got to Nigeria, I was counting down the days to come back to Toronto. Like I was like, I'm over this. Like
Girl.
I'm like
I
I
know
was like,
exactly what you
I'm
mean.
over this. I can't wait to get back home. I was like, oh, so Canada is now home. So when
Yeah,
I came back from that trip, like I started like trying to actively make this place home. Like get used to. Like you can't keep holding on to what was. You have to hold on to what is right now. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And
thank
like I mean like, we're almost done. I just have a few more questions to ask you, but I mean I don't know how to ask this question, but I just like now at what part of your relocation journey do you think you're in now? Because like when I say what part of your journey, I mean like in terms of like, are you settled now? Are
yeah.
you like, do you feel like people still, so a lot of people still feel like, oh, I'm not settled, I'm just like still trying to find my feet. So what would you call, like if you were, you know, the way people say, oh, I'm in my something era, I'm in my this
Oh my
era,
gosh, I
yeah.
was about to just say the same thing. I think I get your question. Like I've gone through the phase of like I said, I was cooking at some point, I was reading, I was
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. And I think the era I am in, like December, and I was telling my friends I was in my makeup girly era. Now I think 2024 for me, one thing I have identified is, like I said, I felt out of place a lot. I was staying indoors half of the time. I wasn't really fully embracing the city. But now that I've been in Lagos for some time, I have done some reflection and I'm looking forward to going back. And I think I'm in an era where I just want to experience life in the city that I have chosen to stay in. I think I have been very I haven't been fully present. So I'm trying to be present. And what I mean by that is when I was like in Vancouver or in Toronto, I kept on worrying about how um like I was overthinking like finances and how why do I have to go to this place? Like, what's my business with? What's the thing that people do? Like, someone would come and say, "Oh, let's go for like a pottery, da 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 da," or let's, you know, the way Canada is now. There's always something to do, and then they will now
Yeah.
start saying like, "Oh, like we need like 200, 300. Oh, let's go to this place. Let's go to that place." And in my head, I was just like, I don't even really care about these things. Like, I was just thinking in my head that I don't really want to do anything. Like, I still feel out of place. I don't really care about like going to these places. But now I'm in an era where I just want to like be more present. I don't think I did that before. I was mostly keeping to myself. I was just mostly doing things by myself. But now I'm looking forward to being more present. By that, I mean like if people should hit me up and say we are doing X, Y, Z, I don't want to like overthink it, right? And I think I'm also in an era where I mean I'm single, like I'm alone in Toronto, but I'm not like thinking about like, oh, when am I going to start a family? But I'm just like trying to be more present and um I haven't even fully processed, like I haven't, you know how people are like making plans for like, okay, if I want to buy XYZ in like 3, 5 years, maybe like invest in a house or something. I haven't even gotten to that phase yet because again, I'm still paranoid. Like, am I actually here? Do you see what I mean? But now I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to going back just to like owning and embracing that, like, even if you came here through a job, like you are like I'm here on PR now, but like I felt a bit out of place because, like you said, like my story is very unique. So I just always felt like, I mean, I just came here, Sha, let's see. But now I'm just like, yeah, I'm here and I'm going to like fully embrace it and actually just make plans towards like making myself realize that like I can start like investing in this city. Like this is my home. Like
Yeah.
I was in denial for some time. So to answer your question, I'm in an era where I just want to be more present and yeah.
Yeah, I really like how you answer like the questions because it just gives a very non-conventional approach, and I really
Thank
enjoy that.
you.
And I
Thank
enjoy
you.
that. So I just have two more things to ask you. The first one is if you could just advise somebody, like somebody that is probably maybe in Canada having doubts, things are not just working out. Like, what would be some advice you could give to people like that have relocated? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
would be something you can just say?
That's a good question. So the first thing I would say is don't be like don't be like locked in on one city. Like I was in Vancouver. I did not feel like I didn't, it's harder making new friends as an adult. I didn't really know anyone there. I mean, I met people, but it all just felt surface level. And my very close friend, my best friend, was moving to Toronto, and she was like, "Yeah, like your work can be fully remote. Like you should move." And initially, I was like, like I should move, like, but I'm so glad I moved, right? So, like, my point is, don't be too like locked in on one city, thinking, okay, maybe I'll move in the future. Like if you feel out of place in where you are, I'm super grateful for Canada because I think opportunities are endless, right? I mean, I know Toronto is expensive, but like if you don't feel comfortable in the place that you are in, like you can make plans to relocate because I just feel like Canada is like land of opportunities, and I'm glad I took that decision. Another thing I would say is um sorry, I was thinking of something but I blacked out. Another thing that I would say is I think uh as much as like it's hard to like make new friends as an adult,
Mhm.
um like I tried to, like I told you I was before, I was just mostly keeping to myself, but now I'm just looking forward to be, I guess, being more outgoing than I was before. Maybe that would help more with how I was feeling out of place. um and then I can't think of the last thing I was going to say, but I hope that helps. I hope that
Yeah,
helps some.
yeah. That it will definitely help somebody. All right. So this is my favorite question. I love to ask. So
Okay.
it's like looking forward right now. What are some of your aspirations? Like, because I know like moving to a new country really does open up people's minds. You see yourself doing things you never imagined you could do. So I'm just like, what are some of your aspirations? Like, what are some things you feel like or you can achieve right now? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I hope that question makes sense.
yeah, it does. So for me, like I said, I didn't really want to leave Nige in the first place. And the reason is because like there's aspirations that I have for here in Nigeria. And as much as, again, I'm not saying I'm moving back, disclaimer, but like I, as much as I have a life there, I am looking forward to seeing the things that I can do here just to like improve the state of the country. And again, it's like in the littlest things. I'm not even talking about anything elaborate. But that's what me I am looking forward to. Like I'm big on education. Like I look for ways that like I can invest in that would help out other people. Like that's here in Nigeria. Another thing, I guess more personal for me is career wise. As much as I love my job, but I'm seeing more opportunities out there. Like when I start meeting more people, especially in Toronto, and I'm hearing like just what other people are earning, like in comparison to like what my company is paying me. I am. I mean, I hope my employer is not listening to this. And
I mean, we
what are you
didn't
gonna
call
do?
their names too.
What are you gonna do? But yeah, the point is that like one thing that I think I have learned is like not to sell yourself short. Like I'm grateful that I got relocated through my company, but at the same
Mhm.
time, like I've met other people, and I think one advice I would have is I've built my company for years. I think maybe 5 years at this point. One of my plans, by God's grace, is to like try to reevaluate and like potentially like move somewhere else because like the things that I have been learning now as an engineer is that like I mean, in terms of promo, like the raise you would get is nothing in comparison to like if you were to get hired somewhere else,
Somewhere else. Yeah.
right? So for me, that's like my next thing. I mean, I don't know whether that would happen, but that's like the next thing I'm looking forward to. I'm also like actively like, I mean, I don't go out much, but like God knows that me, I've been praying. This sounds like I'm putting myself out there on the market. I'm not selling myself, but like one of the things that like I think I am very intentional about is like settling down as well. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that. I know it will happen. I mean, I'm speaking it and I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And most importantly, like I've gone through this journey of like you said, like self therapy, like just to share a little, like I felt like I have been like a people pleaser for like a very long time. And I was telling my friends that this year like is the year of like choosing me, which
Mm,
I'm just looking forward to just doing more things for myself. I don't think I have been as loving to myself as I think I could have been. So that's another thing again that I'm looking forward to.
yeah. I lo- Again, I say I always love your takes on
Thank
like I
you.
always love your takes, the way you answer the questions. Like I love it. Like Wura is so deep. Like I
Wow.
really I really I really
You.
love that. Like I mean everything you say I can literally relate to everything you just spoke about, from being a people pleaser to putting yourself out there more. Like it is also something I'm working on. Like I said, I feel like relocation makes you sit with yourself a lot more and
Yeah.
just really reflect. So I love that. I love that. And I think we've
Thank
come to
you.
the end of the podcast.
Wow, that
Thank
was
you.
so fast.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I told you, I told you, we're just going to
Yeah.
have a normal conversation. I really, really enjoyed this, Wura.
Me too.
Like I really enjoy, and I'm sure the girly, especially the girlies, they'll be able to relate to
Yeah.
everything we spoke about. Like, yeah,
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for
Please,
having me.
yeah, yeah. Ah, what a lovely episode. I truly enjoyed this episode because sometimes, not every time, struggle. I know that sounds very funny. Yeah, sometimes not every time struggle, sometimes soft life, but even in soft life, they still struggle. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed making it, as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. So please remember to share the podcast with your friends, your family, whoever, and just help us get our numbers up, help us get people to listen to the podcast. And also remember to follow us on Instagram at Our Greener Pastures _. And until next time, bye.